what it's called. So he has been successful in his abilities to manage Manchester in mayor. He's kind of pushed a kind of devolution politics. He's saying that we need to move away from London-centric politics. You know, it's one of those things that a lot of people from the north or around the M25 says the problem with Londoners is that they think that the UK is only London, and that's true.
That's
and
true.
We're Londoners, so we always say we don't
struggle to see anything outside of M25, really.
Absolutely, and there's a whole world outside of London.
Yes.
I mean, though London being the financial hub is probably generates the most income for the government, tax receipts, etc., etc. But what is the problem is that a lot of governments previously, the Conservatives tried to do this levelling up. It was called under Michael Gove, the levelling up minister at that time, Boris Johnson. They're spreading the economic blessings of this country across the country. And what Andy Burnham is suggesting in his speech that he gave yesterday, if he does become the Prime Minister in 3 weeks' time and no one challenges him, so if Amina or Shaz wants to challenge Andy Burnham, you have to become an MP. But it's all possible because he's done it. He's done it. He became an MP very quickly. What he's arguing is a 10-year plan, that kind of roadmap for the country. He's arguing that he's going to have a number 10 Downing Street in Manchester. He's also arguing that he's going to have spend part of his time in Manchester itself.
He wants to make some huge historic changes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Westminster elite may not be happy with it, but this is Andy Burnham here. So, and this is what he says. In fact, it's broken as a result of the country isn't where it should be. It's stuck in a rut, and clearly we cannot go on like this. My generation of politicians, including me, must take responsibility. So he's kind of pointing the finger at politicians. There's kind of schisms within parties. He says he's going to make a new kind of Labour Party under one umbrella, invite other members of different parties to come into and this kind of more broad church within politicians. And that is... the thing is, David Cameron tried this with the Lib Dems. I mean, they were in a coalition. It didn't work out. I mean, you saw that it was kind of a junior relationship, and every Prime Minister says, look, we want to make a broad church, we want to bring all the kind of intelligent people from across the party, have kind of consensus across the party. But you've seen Kemi Badenoch yesterday attacking Burnham, say, look, he's not kind of really getting grips with the issue, he's going to cause more chaos and he's going to solve problems. And is this kind of fractured politics and political manoeuvring that is damaging the country? We as individuals, as citizens of this country, what do we want? We want to be able to get on with our lives. We want to be able to feed our families, go on holiday, pay the rent, pay our bills, not be stacked up with debt. And these are universal things across every country. We have all the opportunities afforded to us and our children. And that's the kind of systems that he has to kind of fight against. And he's also pointing the finger at, without pointing the finger at, Whitehall mandarins, the Whitehall elite, the people that help run the country in effect. So, yeah.
I kind of like the sound of this. I don't know about moving to Manchester, right? But
moving number 10, you mean?
Yeah, moving number 10 to Manchester. But I like the sound of everything else.
I think it's. I mean, it sounds interesting.
Anyway, they all say they all give us.
Well, we've got something that he spoke yesterday. So let's hear what he had to say about his 10-year plan.
Number 10 North will be the nerve centre of a rewired Britain. I am going to do things differently. I am going to break with the more of the same approach that has got us here. I am going to give Britain the circuit breaker it needs. We will bring about the biggest rebalancing of power our country has seen. It is time for Whitehall to accept that growth cannot be ordered from the top down. Instead, it can only be nurtured from the bottom up. Ours will be a 10-year mission to raise living standards across the land. To do this, Number 10 North will support the regions on 3 clear tasks: reform of essential utilities, reindustrialisation and the regeneration of places. The change will be the biggest change in our lifetimes to the way the country is run, and it is consistent with the 2024 manifesto. We will create a more streamlined state with a clearer purpose to power up all parts of the country and put a laser-like focus on growth and regeneration, good growth.
Andy is serious.
Yeah. See, well, the issue here is like he's saying that devolution, you have regional mayors who have autonomy over how they spend on welfare, they have control over how they will spend on the amenities for each of their mayors, whichever area that they're looking after. But the problem is that a lot of people are saying, well, if you're looking at Manchester, what about the likes of Cornwall or down south?
Yeah.
You know, Manchester is as far as what Cornwall is towards London as well. So you've got to kind of have that kind of south-north divide and kind of level up on that point. And what is also interesting, he said this is a 10-year plan. That means he wants to be Prime Minister for the remaining 2-3 years that's left of this general election, plus the next general election, and potentially the one after that.
Wow,
so he's already kind of ambitious.
Very ambitious.
Absolutely. But what people have been critical is that, again, it lacks plans. They criticise the fact that he didn't take any questions. Of course, his team are very mindful that if he took questions, that would become the headlines. And he's not been elected the Prime Minister right now, so it's still 3 weeks. In these 3 weeks, he has to be very careful, keep his head down.
Yeah, but they should allow the questions.
They should allow the questions.
Yeah,
because
then you see if he's going to wobble.
Well,
he's saying a lot of stuff, and we want to hear the details of what that 10-year plan looks like. I mean, I found something really interesting, which was that he's got a plan to take back the power from the water companies and then distribute that to the public, so making it a PLC. So things like this, if this is what he's planning to do and he's serious, it's definitely going to be very interesting to see how this 10 years goes.
The thing is, there has been some arguments that, United Kingdom, a lot of Western developed democracies are tied to the bond markets. So if the bond market starts shaking up and down and saying, when you've got 10-year gilts, when you've got these kind of IOUs from the governments and the cost of borrowing goes up and down, it kind of nerves the financial markets. And it's like the financial market, who is the financial market? Can you tell me who this person is? I want to have a word with him. But, Andy Burnham, without saying it, is like, saying that we don't want to be tied to this. But he knows that if they start moving, like they did with Donald Trump against the war in Iran and the oil prices going up, effectively, behind the scenes, they might have slapped him down. Donald Trump, a hard guy to slap down. But again, Burnham has to be very careful, or otherwise you'll have something like what happened with the mini budget under Liz Truss. Who remembers Liz Truss, the 40-day Prime Minister? So it's a very difficult one. But just our last point on this one, a very interesting article by Ismail Patel in the Middle East Eye says that Andy Burnham has to mend the relationship with the Muslim community, because under Keir Starmer completely broke that relationship, completely broke our trust and took advantage of the Muslim community. And they punished the Labour government. They punished the Labour MPs. People just got through by the scraper, like the West Streeting with a couple of hundred votes, just got through. And was the health secretary. So it's another thing which is mending relationships between different communities. That's going to be important, especially amongst the Muslim community. It's going to be very important for us because for now it's a tarnished relationship.
He was asked about his kind of stance on the genocide the other day, and I think he kind of, again, because he's not really trying to answer questions, he was a bit, vague.
But I just find that really strange that you cannot ask questions. And yes, he's got to be careful, but we need to ask those questions. Journalists.
According to some experts, the reason why he didn't ask and his team was that it will become the topic of discussion in all news programs or all current affairs programs. Andy Burnham said this, he didn't say that, he said this, he said that, because the questions would dominate he wanted to just come and say, look, this is what I've got, my plan, my vision. I haven't got the details as yet. The details will be coming out soon, and this is the vision. If he would have started to take questions, then that would become the headlines across all newspapers.
It needs to be discussed, doesn't it? That's what democracy is.
He's not Prime Minister right now. He's still got 3 weeks.
going to be.
He's going to be.
Well, no. In fact, he could at any time something could happen. You know, in terms of this is a guy who's tried a number of times to become prime minister. So he's like he could see the finishing line. He's just like a few meters away. He don't want to say something. And then that's it.
Yeah, and then he
it's a slip
completely destroys it for himself. Well, we'll see how this goes. It's going to be interesting.
Very interesting.
Indeed. So we'll go into our second story, which is rough sleeping is no longer a crime as the 200-year-old law has been repealed.
Yeah. So this is the 1824 Vagrancy Act, which has been repealed. Minister of Housing, Community and Local Government have previously announced plans to repeal the law by spring this year, with fresh powers by the Labour's Crime and Policing Act passed in April, intended to replace the old legislation. So the Vagrancy Act means that anyone caught sleeping rough on the streets could be put in prison. And there's a fine up to £1,000 for rough sleeping. And we know that exponentially the amount of people have been rough sleeping on our streets has gone through the roof. So there was one case study I heard on Radio 4 yesterday when a lady was caught rough sleeping. She was, rough sleeping. Undercover cop comes up to her, arrests her, said that she was rough sleeping and I think begging because she had some kind of box net. So she said, I wasn't begging, but that's what the assumption was. She was thrown into prison for 2 days, or you have to pay £1,000 fine. She goes, if I could afford £1,000, why would I be rough sleeping? So, and then that kind of had a devastating effect on her life in terms of that kind of mark now on her ability to go and work. You know, when you declare to someone, have you got a criminal record? Yes, I have. I've been in prison for 2 days because I couldn't afford this thing. So it's really criminalising people who have no other opportunity but to go and sleep on the streets. It's not something that someone does by choice. And rather than wanting to help them, having the support and the community services in place to support these individuals, we're kind of saying, here's £1,000 fine, or go to prison. And that's the kind of argument that people have been saying that this act should have been repealed a very, very long time ago, and now it has happened.
It's a 200-year-old law that's finally, finally been repealed. But the point is this: you're not going to pay £1,000 if you're on street, right? It's not going to happen. So they're going to all be put into prison. And even hold on a second, is there even space in the prisons for all these people? There is so many people on the streets.
Yeah, 200,000 Londoners, roughly 1 in 50 are homeless, sleeping rough and or in temporary accommodation, and that's not even taking into account of housing crisis. Andy Burnham just said that he's going to have the biggest council house building in the history of any government. So this is all very welcome news, but maybe not so much for those who are running the likes of Thames Water, or to kind of renationalise our industries like water, the railway service, or railway services have come more internationalisation. I think if you're asking me, all our public critical infrastructure like the power grid, like the electricity, water, that should be in government control, and that way we can control the prices, and we need to move towards a greener, more of a greener agenda, because we can't be, we're more than 60-70% food reliant on other countries. If that food supply chain breaks down, we're in real trouble. So we have to be, as a nation island. There's so many
factors here, because it goes back to, again, the farmers, the supporters of the farmers, and the, all the.
Well, I think it goes beyond even that. It goes beyond that. It's that in our country, we are not taught how to financial management. That's not taught at GCSE level, at primary school. How do you manage your finance? It seems very sus that we're not being taught that, but we're taught everything else. We're also not taught how to grow our own food. That seems a bit suspicious as well to me. So we need to have a connection to be able to, Allah gave us all this fruit, apples, resources. It's right in front of us. I mean, we are a very gardening nation. We have allotments. We should be able to encourage people, the next generation, to do gardening, to be self-sufficient. And I think the country needs to move to kind of self-sufficiency. Otherwise, we're going to be too reliant on other nations. And when America sneezes, we catch a cold. We need to move away from that. When you've got countries like France, they're not heavily dependent on food resources from other countries, and we have to move away from that. It's a national security issue.
There's so many factors, isn't
There's
it?
so
It's
many
like,
factors.
how do we unpick it? And
I don't know how we got from homelessness to national security, but here we are.
It comes full circle because it's all connected, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Okay, anyhow, we're going to go to our next story of the day, which is why 8 London boroughs are bucking London's pupil decline.
Yeah, so London experiencing a pupil decline due to the falling birth rates and the housing crisis. With it only continuing to decline as years move forward. I mean, we've talked about this on this program many a times, the declining birth rate in Western democracies. What's happening now is that the so-called burden, now I wouldn't like to use that word, of our older generation, which of course in many Muslim countries is not seen as a burden, it's an honour to serve our older generations, but unfortunately, the mantra in Western countries, especially our country here, is that they're seen as a burden. They're not a burden. They are like an honour for us to kind of serve. But that's the way the society is, and that's something that's got to change as well. New council forecasts suggest a reception pupil demand across the capital will fall by about 2.5% in 25, 26, 29, 30, equivalent to approximately 2.5 to 2,300 fewer children starting school. Schools are already dealing with shrinking classes, stretched budgets. Somehow 8 London boroughs are bucking the trend of decline. That's including Barking and Dagenham, local to us, Havering, Brent, Ealing, Hounslow, Barnet, all which have seen an increase in number of pupils. Most of them are kind of out of London, so they're not inner London or what you may call the kind of hub boroughs, so they're just kind of on the outskirts. Cost of living is pushing families outside of centre, and services like the Elizabeth line pushing families out there. So they kind of need schools and resources for that. I was just talking to a friend on the weekend, and he's saying the old Ford plant, you know, the big Ford plant in Essex, Tilbury, and they've developed a whole kind of, he said, that's his words, a new city there. It seems like schools, resources, parks, thousands of new homes, and these are all where it was Tilbury, you know, the wastelands, not on the western side, but on the other side. And of course, the Ford operation has diminished. That site was absolutely active in the 70s, 80s, and it's been declining.
I went on a school trip there.
So literally all of that area has now been developed, and so you've seen populations pushing outwards because the cost in London has become so expensive. And probably with Andy Burnham, people will now kind of see Manchester maybe as an option, or Birmingham as an option.
Definitely. I think it's definitely, you know, as we say, everything's connected, and you can see the cause and effect happening. People are going to be moving outside. We were just talking about it before the show started about the cost of living, you know, affecting us. So it's on a scale, it's happening across the board.
The problem is that in London, primary schools have been kind of, according to this article, is saying they've been hollowed out. It said that around 90 primary schools and secondary schools in London have closed or merged in the last 5 years.
Wow.
And because of falling numbers, 34 schools face closure ahead of the 25-26 academic year. 90% of schools funding tied to pupil numbers. So, you know, the government or the local councils allocate to the amount of people that you have. I think it's approximately around £2,500 per pupil per year. So if you don't have the numbers, then that's the amount of budget you get per pupil. If that's declining, then how are you meant to run a school? So that's what's happening, the hollowing out of schools in inner London.
The thing is, when they're shutting them all down, what's happening with all these spaces? Like there's a secondary school, a massive secondary school in my borough that is closing down. Is very, very soon. All the pupils need to be placed into other schools very, very quickly. And what are they going to do with all that? What are they going to do with that space?
Well, look, probably what tends to happen is that they kind of repurpose for residential housing, social housing, or for flats, etc. But it's damaging for our pupils, because one of the arguments, and we saw another report coming out yesterday in regards to why working class individuals want to stay in their own communities, in their own areas. People have been forced to go into other boroughs, other areas, and not being in those communities, and that kind of has devastating effects on those local communities, and that's another issue that people need to kind of pay attention.
And again, the mental health issues. Well,
absolutely, that's what the article argues as well.
I'd be happy to move out the borough, but I do understand why people.
What borough are you in?
But I mean, actually, good borough. I would do Forest actually, but
so the reason I'm asking.
No, but the reason I wouldn't leave is because we are connected to our families, and also there's responsibilities of our elders and people, so we can't just abandon that.
However,
Waltham
Forest has been celebrated as an outstanding borough amongst many boroughs for many years. So I was a bit surprised when you said that to me. So this is a decline, a trend that's going to carry on, something that probably needs to be taken up by the local communities secretary, and something that will be in Andy Burnham's in-tray as well, because the provision for our schools is something that's on the decline, and it needs to be kind of really shored up, propped up, and the level of education needs to be kind of reassured for our young pupils.
Andy's got a lot of work to do.
He's got a lot of work to do.
But we will have to go to our next story.
He's got
because
the next 2 years to let us see what he does, isn't it? But anyway,
this is what we need to talk about. So let's go to our next story.
So this story is over 1 million children referred for mental health care, with anxiety being the main reason. This article was actually quite scary it's shocking looking at the numbers. Yeah,
more than 1 million children have active mental health referrals in England, nearly double the 563,639 figure reported between 2018 and 2019 pre-COVID. Referrals for suspected ADHD and autism soared to 47%. To 96,393, while anxiety referrals climbed by 12% to 169,389, according to the National Health Service data. Children faced a weighted average of 128 days for treatment, with 60,041 individuals waiting over more than 2 years to be diagnosed. There's a crisis.
There's a crisis.
There's an absolute crisis amongst our young
youth or the children are going through this. We've got a big problem coming up. But I mean, this is my opinion, and nobody sent angry emails. But I think, the problem is the food, the phones, and possibly vaccines. But this is my personal opinion. I think if we focus on these things, maybe we may eliminate a lot of the mental health issues in the children.
See, in terms of, I will challenge that, because a lot of the scientific data does say, you saw in America, they kind of challenged the vaccine narrative. Obviously, the guidelines in this country is get your children vaccinated, because it stops diseases that were in the past coming back in. We saw recently, a couple of months ago, measles jump up there. In terms of vaccination, I mean, the issue around that is that there is no empirical evidence connecting autism, etc. There is suspicions like triple vaccines given to young children. There is some suspicions around, but there's not enough evidence. But the government guidelines are suggesting that you go ahead and get those vaccinations for young children. They're encouraging people to do that. But in regards to the food, I agree with you on the food aspect of it, because food, what goes in our stomach. So we know there's scientific evidence to suggest that our gut bacteria and what goes in our stomach connects up with what's happening in our brain.
Absolutely. So it's much more deeper, and we know
if you're taking additives, or you're taking things like aspartame, which are dangerous according to the World Health Organization, will impact your brain. And then you got things like social media. Our generation never had that problem. We were the 1980 kids where our parents will say, there's the door, go outside and play, you play, go and play. This generation is at home, on their phones, on their smartphones, on TikTok, whatever it may. And with the government's social media ban, I mean, governments won't do things like this unless they see an existential problem, because the amount of revenue that they get from these tech billionaire or these multi-billion, if not trillion-pound companies is huge. Donald Trump has also threatened that he will impose tariffs on those people who introduce this kind of blanket tariffs or challenge the tech companies. But it's damaging our children, and we have to save our children. And you've seen, there's another part of the argument says that we have got better at diagnosing things like ADHD, autism. If you sit on the spectrum, if you have Asperger's.
But we don't facilitate anything much for them, diagnosing them, and then what? There isn't much facilities like so. If you're a child autistic, after school, what do? There isn't much options for them. After college, maybe some of them get through to college. After that, what is there for them? There isn't much work options.
Well, this is one thing that the article speaks about. It talks about the lack of support for a lot of the children who are waiting to be diagnosed even.
And then Yeah, and then there's things like ADHD and stuff. So again, disabilities that you can't see in terms of like, you know, limb or a physical disability, people find it harder to understand or be empathetic towards because it's an internal mental thing. So we're making diagnoses, but are we facilitating? Are we giving them opportunities? There's no opportunities for everyday students, right? We have that. We talk about this all the time here. But then there's these kind of children. What is there for them? There isn't that much.
Yeah, this is a crisis. I mean, we're getting better at diagnosing, but we have to get better at treating and supporting and aiding. It's that kind of a one-size-fits-all, and then that kind of mentality has now had to stop. Also, the report argues that the disproportionately black and Asian children are disproportionately worse off in terms of this diet.
Black children, 16%
60% Asians, 7.5% of white children. So the referral on ethnic minorities is even worse. Dame Rachel said a fundamental shift, saying that we need to look to support young people's mental health must change, and she emphasised improving children's well-being requires integrated action across government. Another one for Andy Burnham's intrigue.
Absolutely. Well, we're definitely we could talk about this one for I definitely
know for a very long time. But we have run out of time, unfortunately, and it was good to have these conversations. And thank you so much, Irfan, for being here and giving us these updates and you know, having these conversations with us. But we're going to go for a quick commercial break, and don't go anywhere, because myself and Amina, we've got lots of great things coming up later on in the show. So see you very soon.
ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا أو أخطأنا ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إصرا كما حملته على الذين من قبلنا ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا أو أخطأنا ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إصرا كما حملته على الذين من قبلنا ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. رب اجعلني مقيم الصلاة ومن ذريتي ربنا وتقبل دعاء ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب. رب اجعلني مقيم الصلاة ومن ذريتي ربنا وتقبل دعاء ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب. رب اجعلني مقيم الصلاة ومن ذريتي ربنا وتقبل دعاء ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب. ربنا اغفر لنا ولإخواننا الذين سبقونا بالإيمان ولا تجعل في قلوبنا غلا للذين آمنوا ربنا إنك رؤوف رحيم. ربنا اغفر لنا ولإخواننا الذين سبقونا بالإيمان ولا تجعل في قلوبنا غلا للذين آمنوا ربنا إنك رؤوف رحيم. ربنا اغفر لنا ولإخواننا الذين سبقونا بالإيمان ولا تجعل في قلوبنا غلا للذين آمنوا ربنا إنك رؤوف رحيم. ربنا اغفر لنا ذنوبنا وإسرافنا في أمرنا وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. ربنا اغفر لنا ذنوبنا وإسرافنا في أمرنا وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. ربنا اغفر لنا ذنوبنا وإسرافنا في أمرنا وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. ربنا إننا آمنا فاغفر لنا ذنوبنا وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا إننا آمنا فاغفر لنا ذنوبنا وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا إننا آمنا فاغفر لنا ذنوبنا وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا لا تجعلنا فتنة للذين كفروا واغفر لنا ربنا إنك أنت العزيز الحكيم. ربنا لا تجعلنا فتنة للذين كفروا واغفر لنا ربنا إنك أنت العزيز الحكيم. ربنا لا تجعلنا فتنة للذين كفروا واغفر لنا ربنا إنك أنت العزيز الحكيم. رب أوزعني أن أشكر نعمتك التي أنعمت علي وعلى والدي وأن أعمل صالحا ترضاه وأدخلني برحمتك في عبادك الصالحين. رب أوزعني أن أشكر نعمتك التي أنعمت علي وعلى والدي وأن أعمل صالحا ترضاه وأدخلني برحمتك في عبادك الصالحين. رب أوزعني أن أشكر نعمتك التي أنعمت علي وعلى والدي وأن أعمل صالحا ترضاه وأدخلني برحمتك في عبادك الصالحين. اللهم إني أعوذ بك من العجز والكسل والجبن والهرم والبخل وأعوذ بك من عذاب القبر وأعوذ بك من فتنة المحيا والممات. اللهم إني أعوذ بك من العجز والكسل والجبن والهرم والبخل وأعوذ بك من عذاب القبر وأعوذ بك من فتنة المحيا والممات. اللهم إني أعوذ بك من العجز والكسل والجبن والهرم والبخل وأعوذ بك من عذاب القبر وأعوذ بك من فتنة المحيا والممات.
You know, so throughout the day, they can go to this poster, they can press it and they can listen, and that way they will memorize it easily as well. So all the products that we design are interactive. It speaks. It also makes it easy for busy mums like myself. So you can hand them their sound books. So I've got a series of sound books now, which is one of our new products, and they've all got different topics. So I've got the Arabic alphabet for my younger child. I've got daily du'as for my other child. One that's learning how to pray takes the prayer book. They sit down, they press the buttons. It's like having their very own teacher, where they can repeat and learn after it. You know, the recitation, especially if you're a parent that's like not confident with recitation, you know, reverts, they can use these resources, give them to kids, they can learn it independently and interactive and in a fun way as well. Yeah, so a lot of the time it's products that exist, for example. Say like, my kid enjoys puzzles. I'm like, okay, how can I add an Islamic twist to this? And my son is into gadgets, so there's a smartwatch. So the smartwatch, I've added Islamic content into that. So it's got its games, it's got the camera, it's got all the functions of an ordinary smartwatch, but I've added prayer time reminders on there. I've added Islamic surahs on there, daily du'as. So while he's doing his day-to-day activities and doing the things that he's enjoying, he's learning at the same time. So that's what it is. It's kind of looking at products that already exist that my kids are enjoying, and how can I add Islamic concepts into that so that they're doing the things that they enjoy but they're learning at the same time without actually feeling like they're sitting down and learning and doing a session of like studies or something. Yes, so the only employer is myself, so I am the one that's mostly, so within 2.5 years, this is why like, this is an aspect that I'm working more on now to get it like distributed. Alhamdulillah, a lot of the interest has come through people themselves getting in touch with us or other businesses. Alhamdulillah, we are in over 20 countries now, so our products are available, but literally most of this, I would say, is countries and businesses and brands getting in touch with them ourselves, seeing our products. So I haven't actually pushed that aspect myself so much like I would want to. It's all from interest that's come to me. At the moment, I have a website and TikTok, but other aspects, not really. So Amazon, I haven't really properly got myself on, even though I know we're 2.5 years in. It's just because I'm the one person that manages more or less every aspect. Again, a lot of it is just my own research, seeing what's on the shelf. I have a vision. For me, it's a big thing to have it something that I'd like to see it in shops, on shops shelves one day. So packaging is a big factor for me. So again, a lot of it is just through research and just having a vision, and that's it really. In all honesty, I just feel like if you have a vision and you have the confidence, it's something that I've learned over time because I don't feel like I had the confidence to begin with. It's through validation and just hearing it from other people and hearing the positive feedback that I get from mums that have really made me feel like, okay, you know, the idea that I had wasn't so bad. Actually, people are liking it. Why are you like not doing the things that you have the ideas for? And that's why I'm just like, it's like all the ideas are now suddenly being like, you know, brought to life because mums are actually, you know, telling me that this is what they're looking for. That, you know, I should have confidence in the ideas that I have. Yeah, of course, it's really nerve-wracking. Obviously, mashallah, they're very big business people and, you know, they know their stuff. And I don't see myself that way. I don't really, like, you know, even when they say entrepreneur, I'm kind of like, is that me you're talking about? Do you know what I mean? So it is daunting. You know, I probably spoke too fast. I get nervous. But, you know, at the same time, hearing positive feedback from them is a nice thing at the same time as well. So. Well, to be honest, one is, but like, I do get messages like, my son woke the house up for Fajr today because of his smartwatch. So that was one that really stood up. So when I found out that a child is now excited to wake up for Fajr because his smartwatch woke him up and he's waking the house up, I feel like, you know, things like that is like, that's my job done. You know, like that's enough. That is the kind of feeling that I love. And even see my own kids do that in the house is like, yeah, I love that. The dream would be to kind of see my products on the shelf in mainstream supermarkets, you know, around the world. I want to see my own kids around the world. I want to be like the #1 toy brand for Muslim kids. I'm a primary school teacher by profession.
ربنا أتمم لنا نورنا واغفر لنا إنك على كل شيء قدير ربنا أتمم لنا نورنا واغفر لنا إنك على كل شيء قدير ربنا أتمم لنا نورنا واغفر لنا إنك على كل شيء قدير اللهم يا مصرف القلوب صرف قلوبنا على طاعتك 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 اللهم آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار اللهم آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار اللهم آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Salaam Britain. Now, It's time for our much anticipated segment, Money Matters, where we explore the financial topics that affect our everyday lives and help make sense of the world of money. Before we begin, it's important to note that today's discussion is for educational and informational purposes only. Nothing discussed on this programme should be taken as personal financial advice, investment advice, or recommendation to take any particular financial action. If you're considering a financial decision, you should seek advice from a qualified professional who can take your individual circumstances into account.
Yes, and so today we have Adil Bareksi and Ahmed Ayubi, co-founders of NISBA. And Ahmed Ayubi is a financial advisor at Ansari Financial Planning and co-founder of NISBA. He holds both the CFA Charter and the Islamic Finance qualification, bringing extensive experience in financial planning, investment management and Islamic finance. Adil Bareksi is a co-founder of NISBA and a former economics teacher. He has extensive experience in economics, education and Islamic finance, helping to make complex financial topics clear, practical and accessible. So together they bring a wealth of knowledge across finance, economics and Islamic finance, helping us better understand the financial issues and developments that affect our very daily lives.
Yeah, and we'd love you to be part of the conversation. So in our final segment after the break, we'll be opening the phone lines for your questions. Whether there's a financial topic that you'd like explained, or a question about Islamic finance, or something that you've seen on the news that you'd like to understand better, this is your opportunity to put your questions directly to our guests live on air. So please remember that any responses provided on air will be general information and educational commentary only, and will not constitute as personal finance advice.
Yes, absolutely. So you can call us directly or send your questions via WhatsApp on 0203 011 5786, and we'll put as many of them as possible to our guests during the programme. So start sending in your questions right now, and let's get straight into today's edition of Money Matters.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back everyone to another episode of Money Matters. We're super happy to be back. I have my partner here, Ahmed, and I am Adil, your co-host today. So we've been going through different topics over the last few weeks. We started off with pensions a few weeks ago, and then just a few weeks ago, we started going through your goals. Now, your goals are super important when it comes to investing. Now, Ahmed, we have this crazy screen going on behind us. What are you trying to represent today?
What I'm trying to show is that when people think about finance, they think about investing, and they think it's all about these charts. But there are some really important things to consider before we even start talking about investing. And that's one of the things that we'll be looking at today.
So some of those really important things are like being adequately hydrated.
Hydrated, yes, that's one.
Have your matcha in hand before you do any finance, right? Don't invest until you've got your nice snack, your hot summer snack. No, we're not talking about matcha, we're not talking about your desserts, but this is going to lead us nicely onto the topic today. Now, obviously, we are in a time where things are becoming more expensive, but also there's just a lot more choice. It's just so easy to spend money. You can tap on your phone, you can tap with your watch, you can pay, with crypto, you can pay with all sorts of things. So buying has never been so easy, which is why the topic of today is, I think, more important than ever. So what are we going to cover today?
We are going to cover the topic of budgeting. That's why we had the picture of the matcha. Some people, they go to a coffee shop. Adil, you like your matchas, don't you?
I actually really don't like it.
What's your favourite? White chocolate matcha?
I've tried it once and I just thought it was horrible.
So when you have a white chocolate matcha, how much do you usually pay for a white chocolate matcha?
I think they're like £5–6 now.
All right, so the idea is, when you're going to make a decision like that with your money, what are you thinking? Should I sacrifice my money today for something that I want in the future? Or are you thinking, oh, I just need to cut back on my spending? Is there any plan around it? That's what this whole idea of budgeting is around. Making sacrifices, perhaps with your money, perhaps not, that will help you achieve things that you want in the future. That is the big concept of budgeting, and hopefully, inshallah, we're going to try and break it down for you in this short segment.
Yes, there is a lot to get through, but let's try and go through it. So we introduced to you this 6-stage framework that we have kind of come up with, and this is how we teach people very regularly how to invest. Now, before jumping straight into what should you invest into, there's a few things we need to do first. And these are arguably far more important, so please pay attention. We are focusing on stage 1. Last time we looked at part of stage 1, but we're carrying that on today. Then we're going to look at what are the different investments you can make. Then we'll be working through some bit more complex topics around tax, asset allocation, and then actually how to practically do it. So please do join us on each episode as we tackle this 6-stage framework bit by bit. So inshallah, by the end of it, you'll come out with a really nice halal portfolio that makes sense for you.
Yeah, so last episode, we touched on, we started going into goals and risk. We looked at goals, and this week we're looking at budgeting. So let's get into it, inshallah.
Now, what's the first thing you do when it comes to budgeting? I know budgeting sounds really boring. It sounds like one of those things, oh yeah, it's fine, I don't need to do it. But it is really important, you know, and especially as Muslims, we should be intentional with what we're doing, right? We don't just chuck our money about. We don't just spend on things that we don't really care about. Let's be intentional with how we spend. So the first thing you need to do is get yourself a really nice note planner. No, I'm kidding. But what you do need to do is, yes, we all need to budget. You know, I still do it. And I like to do it at the end of the month. I go through my spending. There's different ways. I like to use the old school Excel. What do you like to use?
I don't think Excel is old school. I think a pen and paper is old school.
Okay, fine.
But I think Excel, Google Sheets, something like that is a really nice place. But conceptually speaking, where do we even start with budgeting? Or where do people generally start? When people think about budgeting, they just think, let me cut my spending. The problem with that is, to what point are you cutting your spending? You know, your current spending could be up at a certain level, okay? And you might think, oh, maybe I cut my spending down, you know, £100 a month, £200 a month. Maybe I cut it more. So the whole idea of budgeting is, when we're looking at it, maybe if we had a plan in place, we would have something to work towards. That's what we're hopefully going to be introducing today. What plan are we working towards when it comes to budgeting? So we're not just cutting money for the sake of cutting money.
Yeah, and then ultimately maybe living a little bit less happy than you need to.
Yeah, but there's going to be a starting point, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing to always work out is kind of, well, how much are you earning and how much are you spending? And if you're spending more than you're earning, then we're already not in a very good position. So we are going to have to take some action in this in the first step. Of course, we would like to at the very least, have our earning the same as our spending. And if we can't do that, then we need to take some action as well. But the ideal scenario is where we have our spending below our earning and we have this gap. So this is going to be our savings gap. But how much do we save? Do we need to save every month? Is it once a year? And why am I even saving? What's the point of all this saving? What am I even using those savings for? That's what we want to tackle today. So let's try and make sense of all this.
Yeah, so in the last episode, we touched on the whole idea of different things that you could be saving money towards. Be it Hajj, be it retirement, be it for a property that you want to buy, or be it for your kids' education. When you have these financial goals in mind, you can then work out how much you need to save towards each one per month. That's exactly what we went through in the last episode. When you have your goals laid out, you will then see, oh, to buy that house, I will need to have £30,000 in 6 years' time. Now I need to save towards it on a monthly basis. This is how much I need to save each month. When you have those goals, then you can start to see how much money you need to save each month. And then the idea is to compare that number to how much you can actually save and then get those two numbers in balance. Wouldn't it be lovely if we had a little graphical representation of this?
Oh, that would be amazing. So on screen, we now have, okay, it's quite colourful, but let's just go through it step by step. We have these 3 main levers. So when it comes to budgeting, we want to pull one of these levers to make sure we get to our budgeting goal. So the first thing is our earning power. Okay, how much are we currently earning? Then we have how much are we spending? And then we're left with effectively our balance. Now, the key thing here that hopefully you can see is actually the amount that we have left over is unfortunately less than what we need to achieve our goals. So we are going to have to take some action to try and achieve this and make this really balance out.
Yeah, we're going to have to play around a bit. And what can we play around with? We can play around with the levers. That's why we have lever 1, lever 2, and lever 3. So we're going to go through them one by one, starting off with lever 2, rather randomly.
That makes sense, yeah, nice.
And then go to lever 1 and lever 3. And hopefully, yes, get the amount that we save each month in line with our goals. So let's look at lever 2. Imagine this is a starting position. Your starting position is, you've calculated that to achieve your financial goals, you need to save around £1,056 a month. That is something that you would have gathered if you watched our last episode. Make sure to check it out online on the Islam Channel site.
And YouTube.
And YouTube, that's the one. But we can only save around £500 a month, okay? £500 a month is what we can save. So let's see now. Cutting spending. And how do you feel about cutting your spending?
I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. I like to spend.
Because you'd like that matcha?
Yes, I love my iced matchas and shopping and all of the above. But no, yes, that is obviously one obvious thing we can do to cut spending. So should we just try and give them some examples? Because I know everyone knows how to cut spending, but it's nice when we just refresh your ideas. And I actually did this one personally. I called up my internet provider not long ago and I said, you know what, I'm not too happy. I know there's a lot of competition in the market. I know they're desperate for business. And I said, I'm probably going to leave. But do you know what they gave me? 3 months for free. So I instantly saved myself 3 months off my internet spend, and they cut the bill for the remainder of my contract. So that's something really easy you can do, and it took me like 5 minutes.
So that's your broadband provider. Do you think you can do it with other providers or any monthly subscription?
Any of your monthly subscriptions, you know, one of the best things you can do is just call up to cancel. When you call up to cancel, they instantly start giving you some savings.
But what if they do actually cancel?
Well, then if they say they cancel, then they cancel. Then it's fine.
But what if you need it?
Okay, well, obviously have that in your mind beforehand. But definitely, you can negotiate on your subscriptions.
Yeah, I actually called up my broadband provider. They dropped my payments by £12 a month. You could do that with many things. Like you can renew your electricity bill every so often. Check out the contracts that are available. You know, when you come to renew your car insurance.
Yeah.
Don't just renew with the same person you're with. See who else is out there, see what the prices are.
But that's actually a really important one with the car insurance. Apparently, if you renew it ahead of time, you can actually save a bit of money. So doing things, you know, with a bit more thought and not leaving to the last day, because apparently if you renew your insurance on the last day, it's actually a little bit more expensive. So renew ahead of time. And you can still renew it for that date, so it's not like you're paying more. Why have you got toothpaste on the screen?
We've got toothpaste on the screen because there are many things that we buy that are branded. And I was quite big on branded things. However, a lot of supermarket brands, they are just as good. And they're going to be half the price, if not even less. So I would highly encourage everyone to try out some other brands when it comes to, you know, popular products, just to see how they are. You know, you could save a huge amount of money by switching brands or even buying in bulk. You know, these days, I mean, I don't know how long toothpaste lasts, a couple of years. Maybe check the toothpaste bottle. But you can buy things in bulk sometimes, and that can save you a bit of money. All these little tricks, you know, if you are in a job that maybe you earn £20 an hour, sometimes you could do a bit of research into something about how I buy my toothpaste or how I buy my hair gel or something like that, and then you could save yourself far more than you could earning in that time. Interesting to think about. And the last one I added, what's this plate?
It's food. Well, actually, we just saw an article literally just now on the BBC about a couple that bought a packed lunch to work every single day for 10 years.
10 years.
And then they were able to retire early. Food is something where we spend a lot of money. You can be smart. I know, obviously, when I grew up, we'd get takeaway once a month. Now I feel like people get it like twice a week just because it's a bit of fun.
You get takeaway twice a week?
No, I'm not saying me. I'm saying people. Delivery is so easy nowadays and other food apps. But food is a great place to try and save money. You know, maybe meal prep. Look at how much you're spending on eating out and your groceries. How much are you throwing away? Maybe you're not actually organising your meals well enough. So it's definitely somewhere where you can save money.
Yeah, it's definitely a huge one. There's quite a few different apps out there as well when it comes to trying to cut costs that help categorize your spending into different things. Some apps do it, like the Revolut banking app, or there's Snoop, or there's so many different things that you can check out. So let's now imagine the scenario. We've looked through our costs. We've managed to cut some of our costs by around £250 per month. So now the amount that we need to save each month and the amount that we can save each month is getting a bit closer. It is getting a bit closer. So now let's look at the first lever, which was increasing the amount of money we make.
Yes. Now, obviously, it's difficult.
Yeah.
But you know, you can make more money. There are ways. There are definitely ways.
So you're going to tell everyone how to become rich.
This is how you get rich quick. No, it's not really. But one of the things that I've looked into a lot of research is people are very scared just to go to their job and ask for more money. Remember, we've talked a lot about inflation. If inflation is at 3% and you're getting a pay rise of less than 3%, effectively you're earning less money than you did last year. Don't be afraid to ask your job for a promotion, but have that structure in place. Okay, what do I need to do so that I can earn, increase my salary? What targets do I need to meet? And then say, can we set a meeting for 6 months' time so that we can review those targets? If that doesn't work, you can look for another job. I know the job market at the moment is a bit tough, but doing things like boosting your CV with some other education can help. But don't be afraid to look. You know, at one point I was applying for hundreds of jobs. You can't say, oh, I've applied to this many, I give up now.
Yeah, there's a thing that we generally just look for new jobs when we don't have a job. You can look for a new job while you have a job, even if you don't have a serious intention to move. Just see what the the salary ranges for people with your level of experience are. Maybe you are getting significantly underpaid. Maybe someone else values your experience and your skills even more than your current employer. But obviously, it depends on your situation.
Absolutely.
What else do we have, Ad?
Well, hopefully, maybe you can understand what's going on here. We are now demonstrating the power of a side hustle. Yeah, you know, we're in the age of AI now. There's lots of things you can do online.
What's a side hustle?
Where you have an additional income to your main job.
Okay.
So, you know, whether you're buying and selling something, maybe you're providing an additional service, maybe it's tutoring, maybe it's Uber driving on the side. I don't know, but there's things that you can do to earn a little bit of extra money. Any ideas?
Sell cupcakes?
Yeah, sell cupcakes, yeah. There's lots of stuff you can do.
Sell something on Etsy?
Yeah. Vinted?
Vinted, yeah. So many ideas. And this final one down here, a really important one. We live in a country, alhamdulillah, that has many benefits that go out to people that are in need of benefits. For example, child benefit, housing benefits. There's all sorts of things. You may be entitled to some benefits that you don't even know you're entitled to. There are many websites out there, including a government website, I believe, where you can check what benefits you're entitled to if you put in your details. So go on the internet, search, how can I check what benefits I'm entitled to? Put in some of your details and find out if there's something that you're missing out on, because it could be massive.
Yeah. So we had the initial amount that we were saving, which was roughly £500. We then cut our spending. And now we've also increased our money. So actually now we've really narrowed the gap between how much we need in terms of achieving our goals and how much we are able to save on a monthly basis. We're getting really, really close now. So what's the final thing that we can do?
The final lever that we spoke about was actually changing your goals. So you might have a goal, for example, to go on Hajj in 3 years. What's something that you could do to reduce the amount that you need to save each month to go on Hajj in 3 years? Can you think of something, Adil?
Well, maybe you just push it back 1 year.
Yeah, maybe go on Hajj in 4 years. Now, instead of having 3 years to save for it, you've got 4 years to save for it. So that's the kind of example we're going to go through. We have adjusting your goals in terms of time and cost. Now, not every goal can you adjust when it comes to cost. For example, cost of Hajj. Cost of Hajj is what the cost of Hajj is. You can't really get that cost down. But for example, if you were looking to buy a car and you had £30,000 saved up in your head to buy a car that you wanted, do you reckon you could buy a car with £20,000?
I think you can.
I think you can.
Yeah, you could definitely. You can move around little things, maybe just decrease your expectations a little bit. Remember that this is all for a reason. We're trying to be a little bit more intentional so that we can achieve the things that really are important to us. You know, when you buy a car, very quickly it loses its interest. Like you're not so excited by it like a few months after buying it. So don't get too attached to the thing that you don't even own yet.
So we're talking about reducing the amount that we're going to spend on that car and perhaps even delaying the time when we buy the car. So now we can imagine the amount that we're going to put away each month to achieving that goal can be decreased. Now, obviously, when we're talking about a car, some people might be thinking, well, I don't know, why are you even talking about saving up for a car? I'm just going to get a car on lease.
Well, maybe you've done your research and maybe you've come to the conclusion that actually leasing is not in your best interest. One thing I often find when people go into the mentality of leasing is that I had an initial budget of buying a car for X amount of pounds, but then as soon as they told me that I can get this car on monthly payments, I'm like, oh, maybe I'll get a nicer car.
Yeah.
Instantly, you went from like, oh, I'll buy a £20,000 car to actually, you know what, I'm going to lease this car because it's only a few £100s a month, but actually the cost of the car is now £40,000 that you're committing to.
Yeah.
So whilst it might be really attractive, it's definitely one to sit with and do your research on whether it's actually right for you.
Yeah, and obviously we're using the example of a car today. It could be anything. Or we could have Hajj down here, we could have retirement down here, we could have anything. But we're using the example of a car because it's quite a flexible goal. You may have 3 or 4 goals. The car goal might be the most flexible. So we're talking about £30,000 over 3 years and a rough amount each month that you want to save. Let's change that goal so it's now more affordable. So now we are going to a case where we now have 4 years and now it's £20,000 that we're saving up for the car. So maybe we're not buying that RS3, maybe we're buying a Vauxhall Corsa.
Or the A3.
Or the A3.
It's a slightly cheaper.
Or the A3. Both great cars, nothing wrong with it. It takes you from A to B, but you've reduced the financial burden that you need to achieve that goal.
Yeah, I think this is a really important thing. So remember, the key part that we're focusing on is we had our goals. We costed up how much those goals cost. You know, the cost of the house, the cost of the kids' education, whatever it might be. We came to a number that we need to contribute on a monthly basis. So we made it much less scary just by doing that in the first instance. Now we're figuring out how much do we save, because remember what Ahmed said right at the beginning. How much do you need to cut your spending by? Is it a little bit? Is it a lot? Once you start understanding, you know, what you're actually working towards, then when you do go out for dinner or when you do go out for things, if it's part of your budget, you don't have any guilt. It's just a much nicer way to live. So you're not constantly chasing your tail like, oh, did I spend too much this month? Did I not? I don't know. I just don't know.
Yeah, that's lovely. When you start with the things that are most important to you, then you can understand when you go to buy that matcha, is this matcha as important to me as achieving my financial goal, whatever it is. I always feel like investing and the whole idea of saving and budgeting and the whole area of finance is very similar to food.
Yeah.
Because maybe if you are going on a diet in terms of food, you figure out how many calories that you can eat each day or each month, and then you cut the amount that you eat each day in order to achieve that. It's the same with money. You have a target that you want to save each month because of your financial goals. That's why we started with financial goals in the last episode. That's why they're so important. That's why this whole area of finance, personal finance, starts with what do you want to achieve on a personal basis when it comes to your money.
Yeah, it doesn't really get much more simple than that. So we started off with these completely out of sync. We were not saving enough, but through those 3 different actions that we pulled, those 3 levers, we were able to save some money. We maybe negotiated or got some benefits that we were entitled to. And finally, we just tweaked our goals accordingly, and we realized what was more achievable. And now finally, we have this picture whereby actually the amount that we are saving, our surplus, is actually a little bit more than how much we need every single month. So now we can actually achieve those goals in terms of the monetary amount that we need to contribute every single month. And we have £27 left over.
Yeah. Obviously, this was an example. Some people might say, oh, it's a bit ridiculous, or it's a bit unbelievable how you can suddenly increase your income by £250 a month. But remember, these are the tools in your toolbox to help you achieve what you want to achieve. Maybe increasing your income isn't one of the tools that you use, but playing around with your goals is one of your tools that you're going to use. Maybe cutting down on your spending isn't a tool that you're going to use because you can't cut down on your spending, but then messing around with your goals is. And it also helps you realize what goals are actually achievable. When someone says to you, what financial goals do you want to achieve? And they say, well, I want to buy a car that costs £100,000. And then you do the calculations for it. Now you realize, well, I can't afford that car. It's not going to be possible. Or perhaps I want to buy a new house for £1 million in 5 years' time. Then you do the calculations in terms of how much you have to save each month, how much that money can grow by each month. And then you realize, oh, it's not affordable. But after you do this exercise, then you can start to realize what's realistic and what isn't realistic. What are our takeaways today, Adil?
So the main thing that we really want to take away is we don't just save randomly. We save with intention. We know how much we need to save, and we put that money into our goals so that we can achieve the things that we really want to buy. And now, remember, we had that big savings block earlier. Now we split it up, and it goes towards goal 1, 2, and 3, whether that's house and kids or whatever it might be. So that's the key thing. What we want you to really focus on is you're going to have to sit down with your numbers, and it's not just a one-time thing. You need to pull out the data, use an app, use Excel, use whatever you need, pen and paper, but you need to sit down with your numbers, and you need to get to a place where you clearly know, you know what, on a monthly basis, I save £712. And be as specific as possible. And how much of that is going to go towards your goals. Remember, how much are the goals costing you? And if you need to, you start pulling on these 3 levers. Do I need to actually go get an appraisal from my job? Do I need to go and negotiate a salary? Can I check out some more benefits? What can I do to help me achieve those goals? Because those goals are important to me. And I just think this is really important because some people just give up on some of their goals before they've even started. So I'm hoping this will give you a little bit more motivation to say, actually, let me do the numbers, let me run the numbers, and let me see what is achievable. So hopefully you've enjoyed this part of the segment. In the next part, we are going to start going through your questions. We've already had quite a few questions coming in. So please do use the number that's going to come on your screen in just a moment, inshallah. And we're going to start answering any questions about budgeting or maybe any other topic that you have in mind. But hope that helped. And we will be back in a few minutes after the break, inshallah. Any final words, Ahmed?
Yeah, I just feel like for some people, they think certain things are unaffordable. For example, the idea of going to Hajj. It's so expensive, but a plan is never put in place to even start saving towards Hajj. So hopefully with the framework we have today, maybe that's something that you can potentially try and see if it would work for you.
Okay, so we have covered budgeting today. We've looked at how you can start tweaking your budget and how you can achieve your financial goals. We will see you after the break where we will start taking your questions. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum for now.
ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا أو أخطأنا ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إصرا كما حملته على الذين من قبلنا ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا أو أخطأنا ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إصرا كما حملته على الذين من قبلنا ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين ربنا عليك توكلنا وإليك أنبنا وإليك المصير ربنا عليك توكلنا وإليك أنبنا وإليك المصير ربنا عليك توكلنا وإليك أنبنا وإليك المصير رب اجعلني مقيم الصلاة ومن ذريتي ربنا وتقبل دعاء ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب رب اجعلني مقيم الصلاة ومن ذريتي ربنا وتقبل دعاء ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب رب اجعلني مقيم الصلاة ومن ذريتي ربنا وتقبل دعاء ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back everyone to the next part of our episode. So in the previous section we were looking about budgeting. We started talking about those 3 levers that you can pull when it comes to your budgeting. So maybe it's cutting your spending, but how much? Maybe seeing if you can increase your income, different ways of doing that. And then the final part was adjusting your goals and maybe in terms of the time or the goal itself. So there's different things that you can do, and there are things that we should all be looking to do because, you know, there are things that we want to achieve in life. Maybe it's buying a bigger house, maybe it's going on a nice holiday, whatever it is, we need to plan for those things. And if we, you know, don't plan, what's that saying?
A lack of plan is
no. Fail to plan
is a plan to fail.
That's the one. Yeah, terrible.
We got there in the end.
Yeah,
we got there in the end.
So we have been getting a lot of your questions in, and if you do want to call in, the number is on screen. So you can either call in, it's 0203 011 5786, or you can actually comment direct on YouTube because I think this is being streamed live on YouTube. So please do leave your questions and we'll try and come to them as many as we can. But let's start off with the ones we have here. So this is from Fatima in Birmingham, and she said, I work irregular hours, so my income changes every month. How do I create a realistic budget when I don't know what I'll earn? That is a tough situation.
It's a very tough situation.
What? Any suggestions?
I don't know. Do you have any suggestions? No, realistically, if you have an irregular income each month, you are going to have to try and work with averages in terms of how much do you, on average, earn each month. Some months you'll be able to save more than others. You'll also have a minimum number, generally speaking, that you will be able to have as income each month. But certainly when we have irregular income and irregular expenditure, it does make spending that much more difficult. But in reality, that's when averages do help, looking at how much you can make in a month or how much you earn as a minimum per month and try and work with that.
Especially if maybe sometimes your income is seasonal. So
Yes.
you know that actually in the months where I might earn more money, I need to put away a lot more to kind of cover me for the other months. I think in those cases where you have that irregular income, you're going to have to be doing your budgeting every single month. You're going to have to be really, really tight on your numbers and be very, very careful because, yeah.
Well, one other way you could do it as well is, you know, some people budget on a monthly basis because they know how much money they receive each month. But if your job is seasonal or your money is somewhat irregular, you could budget on an annual basis. Because even though you might not know your income on a month-to-month basis, generally you might say, oh, over the course of a year, this is how much income I would make. So that's another way to look at it as well.
Thank you, Fatima. Good question. Hassan from Manchester. I'm paying off an Islamic mortgage or home purchase plan, and I want to start investing. Should I clear the debt first, or should I budget for both? I'm of the opinion, if you can, it's always good to try and start doing both, because with investing, the important part is there's a theoretical side, which is understanding the risk, the reward, the different investments, and actually what is right for you. But then there's actually the practical side of actually getting started. So even if you start with something really, really small, I think it's nice because then you learn how the apps work. You learn about the little technicalities. Oh, how long does it take to get my money out? Oh, what happens on the weekends? Or what's this little button do? What does this word mean? And you start just doing a little bit more actual hands-on research and your questions become a little bit more refined. So I would always say, if you can, try and do both, even if it's a small amount.
Yeah, I would say that a lot of people, they might have a financial goal which coincides or exists at the same time while they are paying back for their property. So if you did want to give your child, say, a certain amount of money to go to university, but you're still paying back for your property, you can't say, well, I'm not going to give them any money because I'm paying back for my property. You would say, no, let me try and achieve both financial goals simultaneously by saving for one and putting money towards a house, and then you can achieve them both at the same time. And I think generally that's how the majority of people do it.
Yeah. Okay, we have another one here from Amina in London. So I'm 34 and I'm feeling behind on saving compared to friends. How do I budget for starting from scratch? It's a tough one, and I think especially in the day and age that we're in with social media, we are constantly comparing ourselves. We constantly see, oh, this person has this car, this person has this job, this salary, this many kids, whatever it might be. There's just always a comparison, and that really famous saying that I really like, comparison is the thief of joy. Try not to compare, but the question is, how do I budget starting from scratch?
How do you budget starting from scratch?
So imagine you have no savings, and now with day one, okay, I have a salary, maybe I can save on a monthly basis. How do I even start budgeting?
Well, you should think about the first goal that you should have. If you have no real money and savings at the moment, that should be your first focus. You should focus to try and have an emergency fund. An emergency fund is a small pot of money that you have on the side that you would go to in the case of you not having enough money to cover that month because of any unexpected expenditure. So, for example, maybe your car broke down, maybe your boiler broke, maybe you lost your job and you don't have any income that month. That emergency fund is supposed to cover you in that case where you have a rainy day or a bad situation. That's where you go to. In terms of how much should you have in that emergency fund, they say between around 3 to 6 months worth of essential expenditure. So if you have in any given month about £1,500 of money that you have to spend, for example, on water, electricity, gas, rent, essential food costs, then you should have around £4,500 saved up on the side. That's your emergency fund. And that's what I would work towards initially as a budget. But if you're currently not saving any money each month, that's also something that you have to look at in order to achieve your emergency fund. You have to be saving money each month. So you have to look at your income, either try and increase that, or look at your expenditure and try and cut that. And we suggested quite a few different ways where you could cut your expenditure or increase your income. So really look at them.
Definitely. Okay, so we had a question just come in live. So this question says, my bills keep going up, but my salary hasn't. Which part of the budget should I focus on? Now, which part of the budget should I focus on? Is it this earning power or cutting in my spending? It is a tricky one. I think the first thing to do is really focus on understanding where you are. So in terms of your earning, how do you actually compare in terms of your skill level, your education level, and all of those different things? Are you at the correct level? Do a little bit of market research, go onto LinkedIn, speak to some recruiters, understand the job market around you. If you are being underpaid, then you know that's your starting position. Either you go out and you try and get a promotion or you get a pay rise, or you know that you need to start looking for another job. And sometimes looking for another job can give you that power to negotiate your salary. So that's stage one. The other part is cutting your spending. Again, you need to do some market research, but the research is on yourself. How much are you spending every single month? Try and categorize it into different buckets, whereby you have your fixed essentials, whereby it doesn't, these are things that you can't go without, your water, your food, etc. But then you have your luxuries, maybe eating out, maybe it's clothes, maybe other things. And on that amount, can you cut a little bit there? How important is it to you that you spend that amount of money every single month? So whilst bills do keep going up, I think there's always small steps that we can take to try and improve our circumstances.
Yeah, I always feel like there's some low-hanging fruit when it comes to budgeting. Like when I called my broadband provider and I said, well, why are you putting up my bills? And they reduced it immediately. That was low-hanging fruit. And maybe you haven't had a call or you haven't had a meeting with your HR department about your salary in years. That might be low-hanging fruit. You might just go in there and say, well, you haven't increased my salary. And they go, yep, you're right. We'll push you up by this amount. Low-hanging fruit. I'd say go for those things first.
Definitely. So we've just had a caller come in live. So this is someone that's going to be anonymous, and they're calling from London. So please let us know your question, and then we'll try and answer it.
Hello.
Hi.
Yes, basically, I was listening to Martin Lewis, and he's suggesting people on a tight budget like myself. I don't work. If you're under 39, you can get on Money Box a government lifetime ISA where the government puts in 25p per pound. So I'm thinking if that's halal, I'm going to go for that. Because if I put £100, the government will give me £25 on top. And it's a great saving from 18 to 39-year-olds. So I'm going to tell my son to do it.
So one thing to note is that is an investment decision. So you have to be very careful before recommending it, even to your own child, whether it's worth it, without understanding all of the rules. And this particular investment, arguably, probably has the most rules around it. And actually, more people have paid the penalty on it than have actually received the benefit of it. So please be careful. So what we're talking about here is called a lifetime ISA. Now, this lifetime ISA is a special account that the government has created to help you achieve one of two things. Number one is either to buy your first home, so the key thing is your first home, or the second thing is for retirement. You cannot spend that money unless it's for one of those two things. Now, if you want to buy your first home, there are lots of rules. The house can't be above £450,000. Some of the Islamic mortgage providers will not allow you to use that lifetime ISA because they don't have the means to allow you. So there's lots of rules there. And if you don't use it for your first home, then you'd have to use it for retirement. So the money is going to be locked away at least until 57 years of age. Now, to get that benefit, yes, you put money in, and you would get that 25% up to £1,000. So if you put in £4,000 a year, you would instantly get £1,000. There have been some good articles and research to say that this bonus is Sharia compliant, it is permissible. But you've got to be really careful in terms of whether you're going to make that decision. Are you going to use that money? Because like I said, a lot of people put money into this account, it doesn't quite work out, and then they go to withdraw the money, and now they have to pay a penalty.
How much is the penalty?
The penalty is 25%. But obviously, if you put in £4,000 and then they add 25% to it, so it becomes £5,000. Does it work that way?
No, you come out with less. You come out with like 3,700.
Yes, because 25% of the higher amount. So you actually end up with less than you put in. But one more thing, just remember, if you are investing that money through a platform like Moneybox, your money will be invested. When it's invested, you also have to make sure that you put it into Sharia-compliant investments. Otherwise, you may be earning interest on that money. You may be investing in companies in the tobacco or alcohol industry. And as far as we are aware, Moneybox doesn't offer any Sharia-compliant investments. However, there are many lifetime ISA providers out there.
Okay. Thank you very much.
No, thank you. It's a great question. I think a lot of people have been thinking about that topic because I've seen that clip as well and it's gone viral. So I'm glad you asked so that other people can benefit. So let's go. We have a few more questions here. So this one is from Tariq in Leeds. So I get an unpredictable bonus each year. Amazing. Can we have a part? Can you share it with us? Should I budget assuming I won't get it, or should I factor it in? Interestingly enough, we'll both try and tackle this one. If you go and get a mortgage, you cannot claim that bonus as part of the amount that you earn. So I think there's two ways of doing it. When it comes to your spending, I would not plan as if it's coming in, because sometimes you increase your lifestyle because you factor in, I'm going to get this little bonus. And then, if it doesn't come in, then you're instantly disappointed. And now you've actually spent too much. So in terms of your spending, I would think best to leave it out.
No, I'm going to agree with you on this one.
Oh, really? Nice.
Yeah, even though perhaps we don't agree on many things. Yeah, best to be prudent when it comes to budgeting. That's probably a good rule to go on with many things in life, and budgeting is one of those things.
All right. Thank you for that, Tariq. Okay, Layla from Bristol. Wow, we're targeting all parts of England here. So I'm saving for Umrah and a house deposit with a tight budget. How do I split my money between them? Well, I'm going to pass this one over to you again.
Well, you have to remember, with your goals, some of them are more flexible than others. So you have to think, if I'm trying to achieve both a home deposit and going to Umrah, which one can I be most flexible with? Can I delay the home purchase by a year or 2 years? Do I have to go to Umrah next year or in 2 years' time, whenever you planned, or can you push it forward into the future? Can you decrease the cost of Umrah? Sometimes some packages for Umrah are quite expensive. Maybe you go with a smaller package. Do you need the house deposit or the house price that you have in your mind to buy the property, or can you go for a property that's a bit cheaper? So you have the choices of increasing the amount of time that you have to save towards those goals, or decreasing the amount that you need for achieving those goals. They're the levers that you have to pull when you're messing around with your goals. Obviously, if you are on a tight budget, remember, lever number 1 and lever number 2, you can increase your income or you can cut your spending. But if those two aren't options, mess around with your goals.
Yes, sometimes you can even deprioritize a goal if you have to, if it comes to it.
You mean not do it at all?
Yeah, and just take it off the list for now until I focus on my other goals. And then once I've achieved it, I bring that goal back into play. So I just park it for a period of time. Just as a reminder, please do feel free to call in. We have the number on screen. And also you can comment on the YouTube channel, which I believe is being live streamed. So please do send in your questions. We've got some here that we'll go back to again, but if you want to call in, please do. So we have another one here from Mohammed in Glasgow. I want to retire at 55. How much should I be putting away each month to make it work? You know what I really like about this is clearly they've understood the importance of having the specific parts of a goal. So they've got the timeline. We don't know exactly how old you are today, but you will know that. So maybe it's 5 years away, maybe it's 10 years away, maybe it's 30 years away and you're just planning ahead, which is amazing. You know what the goal is, retirement. The third part that we're missing, though, is how much does that actually cost you? Now, we went through kind of different things that you can use to figure that out. So the government has come out with some research and other parties to say, how much does it cost to live on a yearly basis? And then if you take that and you kind of multiply it by the number of expected life expectancy, which is a bit tough, but if we maybe assume till like 90. So from 55 till 90, now you know that you need 35 years times that 1 year. So if it's, let's say, £30,000 to live, times that by 35, I'm not going to try and do that in my head, 900.
But obviously this is a massive approximation because there's so many things we haven't taken into account, such as, is the money invested? What's the rate of inflation? How much are you going to get in terms of the state pension? Is it just for yourself or is it for yourself and your spouse? So there's so many considerations. In reality, there isn't a question that we can answer here live on TV, but there are many calculators online that can help you figure out how much you need to save each month in order to achieve retirement. Did they have a retirement target of $500,000?
No, there's no number. It's just I want to do it by 55. I'm trying to figure out how much I need to put away each month.
Okay, well, there are many calculators online. Just figure out if you are entitled for the state pension, if you're going to be covering your costs only or you and your spouses, and if you're paying rent or if you're not paying rent. I would say go check out those calculators and make sure you are fully utilising your pension allowances each year.
Yeah, exactly. I think use the calculators, use the tools that you have.
Yeah, remember the state pension doesn't kick in until the age of 66, 67, 68. So really, you have to make sure that you have enough money to take you from 55 to at least the state pension. And then remember that the state pension isn't enough to live off. Yeah. So you have to have some sort of supplementary income on top of the state pension, if you're even entitled to it, to have that retirement that you want.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ahmed. Okay, so we have another question that's just come in. So similar lines to what we had earlier, but regarding the bills. So my bills keep going up, my salary hasn't. What should I do in terms of cutting my budget so it doesn't affect my quality of life? The main thing is is figuring out what is actually more important to you. Is it achieving those financial goals, or is it the spending that you're doing today? If the goals are truly important to you, then you know that you're going to have to make some sacrifices today. When it comes to budgeting, there is going to have to be some sort of trade-off because we can't achieve everything we have in life. You know, not all of us are multi-billionaires, unfortunately. So we have to figure out what is more important. So if you would say one tip, how do you figure out what to cut in terms of, keep maintaining your standard of life?
Well, maybe presents for your spouse. Maybe they don't need to receive all the presents that you currently buy for them, and then your life is still the same.
Yeah, exactly.
But they do say, happy wife, happy life. Yeah. So maybe that's not a thing to cut. One thing that, seriously, you could potentially cut. When I changed my brand of toothpaste, I didn't see any difference in the quality of my life. My teeth are still A+.
I don't know, you can have all the dentists at home go stuff like, what is this advice? This is terrible.
But there are many things that you can cut without, affecting your quality of life. But I would say when you are doing your budgeting and you're cutting back on expenditure, don't go for the things that mean a lot to you. If holidays are really important to you, don't start with cutting back on your holidays. For example, I have a couple of children. I don't like doing stopover flights because my children are quite young. I'm happy to spend a bit more to fly direct. That's part of my quality of life spending that I'm not willing to cut back on. But there are many other things, like days out. Some people like to go to Legoland. Lovely place, Legoland, but it can be quite expensive.
Yeah.
A day in the park with a child, you give them a box. Sometimes they're having just as much fun.
Yeah, even the bags in Legoland are expensive now. Okay, so we have another question that's just come in live. So I think this is quite one that I resonate with as well. I always stick to my budget for 2 or 3 weeks and then I overspend. Is budgeting more about the maths or changing habits? You know what? It touches on a really important point. that the maths is important, but actually understanding your own psychology is perhaps equally as important. I think there's this default position whereby you might cut, and then you're like, oh, I've done so well this week, I'm going to reward myself. And instantly, you've just ruined all your hard work. Or you get a pay rise, and then instantly you're like, well, I deserve to increase my lifestyle a little bit more. Which is why you have all these scary statistics about footballers, professional athletes, and people that got rich kind of overnight, how many of them go bankrupt. Because they inflate their lifestyle so quickly that actually it's no longer maintainable. One of the best things to do is, if you are doing this on a regular basis, remember having the maths part. So if you do ever want to do that, fun bit of spending, it's within your budget. So you remove that element of guilt. But if you know that you are weak and you cannot do this regularly, you need to take other action. I've seen some people pull out cash and they have the amount that they can spend in cash in an envelope. So week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. Maybe you need to do something as basic as that. So you don't use your debit card or your Apple Pay. So you might have to go really old school if you can't be trusted to stick to your budget.
For me, I find doing things slowly is better. It's a bit like people that sometimes, if you were to go on a diet, you might cut out all the fun, exciting foods, and you can do it for 1 week, and then 2 weeks. But then it becomes really difficult, and you go back to your old habits. But what if you didn't cut out everything at once? What if you just cut out your special Friday night ice cream? Or your Saturday...
This feels really personal. It's like you know what we do, and you're just targeting all the nice things that I try and do.
Yeah, I am talking about you. Yeah, your Friday night ice cream or your Saturday night pizza. Maybe just cut out one of those things each week, and then or each month when you're budgeting. Then it won't feel like a sudden big lifestyle change. I do feel like you can budget in a way that your life doesn't decrease in terms of enjoyment or fulfillment, but actually the opposite, where you have more fulfillment in life because you're more intentional with things that you're doing. I really feel like it can be that way, and I think doing it bit by bit would really help.
Definitely. I think the intentional part is key. OK, I think we have time for one more, so let's try and tackle this. So I have money sitting in my current account because I'm worried about emergencies. How much should I keep as an emergency fund before I start investing? So there's two separate things here. You'd have money in your current account that's kind of there to tie you over for at least the next maybe 4 to 6 weeks. So that's one pot of money that you might keep in your current account. Beyond that, potentially you may not need any more than that. But obviously that's not personalised advice, that's just a general understanding. The second part is the emergency fund we are saying is kind of at least as a minimum 3 times the amount of essential costs that you have. So if you've worked out that you need to spend at least £1,000 a month, then you need to try and work towards having £3,000 in your emergency fund. But that would be maybe in addition to your current account, which will just tie you over for the next month or so.
Yeah, think of a current account as your spending for the month and your emergency fund as 3 times your emergency expenditure. Where can you keep that? There are Islamic savings accounts out there where you can earn a bit of money, so it can be quite good.
Definitely. OK, so we've tried to cover a lot in terms of budgeting today. We looked at those 3 different levers. Remember, we are going through the 6 stages, so do try and join us for each episode as we tackle the 6 stages of halal investing. The first parts arguably are the most important, so figuring out how much can we invest, what are we even investing for? So last episode we tackled those goals. What are the things that are important to you? Today we looked at how much do I need to achieve those goals and how do I actually get there? And then we're going to start working through risk in the coming episode, inshallah. So please do make sure you join us every other Tuesday at 11 a.m. And I think that's it from me. Anything else you want to wrap up with?
No, just we'll know if you're tuning in or not.
Yes,
we will know. So make sure you are tuning in.
We'll
see you next episode, inshallah.
So we'll pass it back up.
Well, thank you so much to Adil and Ahmed, and well, that brings us to the end of today's program. So thank you for joining us and for being part of another edition of Salaam Britain. A special thank you to Arfan Ali for bringing us the latest news and headlines earlier, and to Adil Bareksi and Ahmed Ayubi from NISBA for helping us explore the financial topics discussed today's Money Matters segment. And of course, thank you to everyone who got involved by sending in your questions and messages. Your contributions are what makes the program engaging and worthwhile.
Yep, and if you'd like to get in touch with us, if you'd like to maybe appear in the show, suggest a guest, or share a story, or recommend a topic for discussion, we'd love to hear from you. So just email us at sb@islamchannel.tv. And if you're passionate about food, like myself, and you've got a recipe or a culinary tradition that you'd like to share with our viewers, do get in touch. We're always looking for voices and new flavours to feature on the programme. But from all of us here at Salaam Britain, thank you for joining us.
Yes, and until next time, take care of yourselves, stay safe, and inshallah we'll see you again from myself and the team. And Amina, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.